Wonder Woman proved to be a pretty lucky break for Warner Brothers when you think about it. It came along at a time when the DC Universe was struggling to get off the ground after the lackluster Man of Steel and the chaotic, overblown disaster of Batman vs Superman.
Why did you say that name?
It wasn't a perfect movie by any means, and I suspect people look back on it rather more fondly than it deserves, but it delivered a mostly coherent and pretty wholesome story centered around a likeable main character that somehow managed not to be a boring, obnoxious parody of female empowerment, unlike some people we could name.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
And perhaps best of all, it made the most of Gal Gadot's general loveliness, her enchanting smile, smouldering dark eyes, and... Damn, lost my train of thought there for a second. Anyway, my point is that Wonder Woman was one of those rare films where all the different elements that could have gone so badly wrong instead coalesced into a movie that was actually pretty good, and just about everyone seemed to enjoy. Holy shit, man, I guess these things really can happen. Unfortunately, the sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, seems to be headed in the opposite direction. First came the rather underwhelming trailer, which I already covered in a previous video. It featured an unwelcome combination of tired 1980s nostalgia baiting, typecasting of past their prime actresses, an antagonist that bears a striking resemblance to a well-known public figure that people have literally made entire careers out of hating, and the cheap resurrection of a dead character that will almost certainly return to being dead by the end of the movie so as not to fuck up the continuity of the series. It was basically 3 minutes of smoke and mirrors that added up to a whole lot of nothing, leaving us with a cheap, shiny, tacky piece of filler that shed light on a period in Wonder Woman's life that nobody really cares about. Not a great start, to be honest. Then the rumours began to leak out. Rumours that the movie had bombed at test screenings, leaving audiences confused and frustrated and forcing hasty and extensive reshoots as the studio executives scrambled to course correct. Because, you know, that kind of studio meddling at the 11th hour is always a sign of impending success. Then the director did an extremely well thought out interview where she straight up admitted that the movie's villain was a direct criticism of the dreaded Orange Man. Because, you know, of course he is. If there's one thing I've learned during my time as a movie critic, it's that working class American audiences just love it when multi-millionaire Hollywood elites try to inject present day political issues into their escapist superhero fantasy films and lecture them on who they should vote for in the next election. It just makes sense. This was all bad enough, but then the world was put on hold by the unspecified virus of unknown origin, and the summer movie season that was supposed to be crammed full of billion-dollar blockbusters basically couldn't happen. One by one, big-budget movies were delayed and postponed, including Wonder Woman 1984. The summer movie season came and went, and with no end in sight, Hollywood eventually had no choice but to say, fuck it, we're pulling the plug on 2020, including No Time to Die. Oh no, I was so excited about seeing Bond get cured of his toxic masculinity. What a shame. Jesus, it's like this movie's fucking cursed. The problem here is that you can't really afford to leave your $200 million movie sitting in the can for a year or two while we wait for theatres to reopen, assuming there even are any cinemas left when this is all over. Not only do you lose that all-important momentum and public interest as people gradually forget about your film that was advertised a year ago, but you also start to rack up even more debts. See, most studios don't actually finance films by themselves because, funnily enough, they don't tend to have hundreds of millions of dollars just lying around waiting to be spent.
No way!
Instead, they take out loans from investors, and as I've learned the hard way, the thing about loans is that you have to pay them back. In fact, most of the time you have to start paying interest on them right away. The longer you leave the loan outstanding, the more interest you have to pay back. And if you try to duck them, they'll send their cousin Jamal round to break your fucking fingers. Anyway, I think you can see the problem this presented for Warner Brothers. The longer they waited to release Wonder Woman 2, the more debt they'd rack up and the less chance they'd have of turning a profit from the thing. Because believe it or not, studios do actually still care about making money. Not that you'd think so based on the shit they've churned out recently. Which leads us inexorably to the present day and the announcement that Warner Brothers are going to be releasing Wonder Woman 1984 onto the streaming service HBO Max. For free. Because, you know, that kind of strategy worked out really well for Mulan. And I'm sure nobody's gonna take unfair advantage of the situation and start distributing it freely online. The internet would never stoop to that level. They're also gonna punt it out into whatever movie theaters still exist on Christmas Day. Because, as you well know, most people enjoy nothing better on Christmas Day than blowing off dinner and drinks with their family and heading out to a fucking movie theater. So what does this unhappy combination of elements add up to? Well, in a nutshell, it means this movie's gonna flop. Hard. It was already flirting with being a disappointment. The 3-year gap didn't do any favours for its momentum, and now this hasty, botched release onto a streaming service that not many people use is pretty much the final nail in the coffin. And it's a real shame, to be honest, because a successful second movie could have cemented this series as a reliable moneymaker in the years ahead, instead of an expensive flash in the pan. Wonder Woman represents a positive, optimistic, and genuinely likeable female lead, unlike the parade of boring, dead-eyed planks of wood we've been force-fed over the past several years. And it makes me kind of sad that other, less worthy characters might try to fill her shoes. It's just another reason, as if you needed one, to fucking hate 2020.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.